Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mentors Connect podcast. I'm your host Chloe, and today we have Ian Mullane on, who is the CEO of this ultra cool AI company, Keepme. I can't even explain it. It's so cool. I remember I was reading an article, and what they do basically is they leverage AI and data to help gyms, keep clients and retention and really boost sales. So super cool concepts, and we're going to be talking to Ian about his journey to actually founding the super AI company, getting into the business world in that area particularly, and also the future of the fitness industry. So thank you, Ian, for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you, Chloe. You make me sound a hell of a lot cooler than reality, and you're making Keepme sound as if we should be hiring you in our marketing team in the future.
Yes, the AI is so cool. It's so trendy. But anyway, getting on. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you got into Keepme AI space and what actually Keepme is.
Okay, I will do. So I'm actually talking to you today from the United Kingdom, which is where I'm based, but a large part of my career, as well as being in the UK, has also been in the US and over in Asia Pacific as well. So I spent a good 10 years over in Singapore. And during that period, I was working for what was, and that stage was the largest financial services software company on the planet, called SunGard.
So big.
Massive, 20,000 people, and they were an S&P 500 organization. And whilst at that period, out in Singapore, I got interested in fitness, no more than just an interest in actually getting fitter. I started a gym because I didn't really find an environment I wanted to work out.
So you just started a gym. I love that.
Yeah, I know, I realize that sounds a bit blasé, but when you're in Singapore, the capacity to be able to do something like that was there, and I needed to do things which, quite frankly, we hadn't. We now see in the industry, but we didn't before, which was the gym was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We had biometric entry, so people used their fingerprint to get in and out of the site. This is back in 2007, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was set up because an awful lot of expatriates who lived in Singapore are predominantly Kiwi, Aussies, British, Americans, Canadians, and they travel a lot in the region. And because of that, flexibility was all important. So roll forward that and a number of other businesses which I have, and I found myself back in the United Kingdom in around about 2013, and the gym continued to grow. It went from what was effectively a hobby to this 10,000 square foot central business district, Singapore.
And 10,000 square foot in Singapore.
Well, completely correct, right? So, and there you've given me a beautiful segue into my next point. So financial performance was critical because we were paying around about 100,000 Aussie dollars a month in rent. A month, right? So we had to do our numbers. And one of the issues that the industry has is that on average, 40% of gym members, up to 60%, do not renew their memberships. And this attrition is massive, right? I mean, can you imagine how many industries have a case where basically half of your customers leave every year? And to me, this was a challenge which, if I could make an impact on, then I would have the capacity to improve the performance, because the market doesn't constantly grow on an island, particularly in Singapore. So therefore, the only way you can grow is by retaining more than you're actually bringing in. So I was involved. I had another company at the time called LocoWise, which is a social media analytics platform. And we were utilizing artificial intelligence for understanding when was the best times for brands to post to get the highest engagement and what type of posts would work the best. So I wanted to see if I could apply that same information, that same skill set, into understanding whether Chloe was going to leave me in the imminent future. Now, in the gym world, we can do that because the way we can normally do it is we look at their list and we say, okay, so they haven't been active in the last 60 days. And their membership's coming up for renewal, so they'll probably leave us. But you can't do anything with that information. I can't touch it, right? I can try it, but they're gone. Chloe's not interested in getting an email or a call from me. She's over, right? If I could take the data and the historical data and train the model to be able to find within all of the noise, the signals that Chloe was starting to move in the wrong direction, regardless of where she was in her membership. So, yeah, Chloe joined me in January, and it's now March on a 12-month contract. And I can already tell you in March, Chloe's not going to be with you in December. You've got that huge runway to do something about it. So, you know, it was supposed to be an in-house tool, and you know, I had the localized team at the time look at it, build it, we put it together, and we thought, hey, this is cool. And then I had an informal conversation with an Aussie from Virgin Active, and Virgin Active went, yeah, exactly. They went, wow, this is cool. Really? This is what you've done? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, wow, okay, you know, this is pretty big. And then suddenly, you know, this could be a business. So move forward from that. Now, what Keepme does effectively is it goes into an operator, as we call them, and it will consume the data that's within their business, whether that be their club management system, whether that be their customer feedback system, whether that be their marketing systems for emails and telephones and that. And it will build models to help them and then provide them insights to identify people and reasons why people are leaving, as well as using that. Say, if I can tell you the people that are going to leave, I can also tell you the people that are going to stay. And then if we can turn our marketing efforts to trying to recruit more people that stay, right, as well as work hard on keeping the ones that were due to go, then we're going to find ourselves in a robust health. So roll forward, Keepme started in 2019, kind of. They've had this thing, what was it again? Can't remember what it was called. Oh, COVID. Yes, that kind of had an impact. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Wow. And an industry in particular in Australia, right, where you know,
don't get me started. I live in Melbourne.
Yeah, and you know, and Victoria's just had this horrific. I mean, the fitness operators had such a terrible time down there, and then I'm obviously looking up in New South Wales at the moment and Queensland, and we're looking at you know, these same operators now going through the flooding, right? You know, it's horrific. But when you look at that, what's you know, roll forward now, what is it, 2 years? We have about 35 customers over 11 countries. We add about 2 or 3 customers a month, and we have a number of them down in Australia, which is one of the more advanced fitness markets in the world, along with the United States, is a core area for our development.
Oh, well, that's so cool though. And like, I never would have even thought about this, but it makes so much sense to just target the people you've already enticed to join rather than just let them leave. So definitely very innovative, isn't it? It just makes sense. Well,
it is great, but think, you know, there's a real figure that says that it costs 5 times more to bring in a new customer than it is to keep an existing one. Yeah. And everyone throws that out all of the time, but then they don't know anything about it. They're like, oh yeah, it does, it's 5 times. So what are you doing? Well, we sent them an email the other day. Wow, God, but that worked, didn't it? Right? You've got to, you know, if you genuinely believe in this stuff, which, you know, I can see, I know how much it costs for me to get a new customer, and I know how much it costs for me to keep a customer, and it's not that far away from that number. So I think it is a critical path for us to do. Retention is not just important for that, but it also means that if you're retaining more members, guess what? They refer more members coming in. And so that goes, and when you're retaining more members, they spend more money, whether in personal training or retail and all of these type of aspects of it. Yeah, retention is, if it really is a genuine core aspect of a business, then that business will grow. I would always invest in a business with strong retention over strong sales.
And no, just so clever. I'm still in awe of the concept. So amazing. So now getting on to the bulk of our podcast episode, I want to talk more about the future and getting started. Obviously, you're like using AI data, going through it. So I'm curious, how is AI going to change the way businesses operate? You know, gyms, like how is like Keepme changing the way these businesses work?
My hope is that AI overall will improve customer service and the customer experience. It's not possible. We all operate now in a world which is what I would call highly curated. You know, what we listen to, Spotify, what we watch, Netflix, what we shop, Amazon, right? They're all driven by AI algorithms underneath them. In the same respect, I want the engagement with retail or with my fitness provider to have a level of personalization as well. And that's just not possible unless you're utilizing something like machine learning to have the capacity to uncover insights which will allow you to then do something. So for instance, if I can see that Chloe is going to have an interest in personal training, and the impact of me changing a class from one schedule to the next is going to mean she's likely to come less. Then on that basis, I can change my communication, the way I engage with you, how I do so. Now, we could do that for one individual member, but if you're Anytime Fitness in Australia, you've got 500 sites, right? You're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, but the possibility exists to do it. And we have the capacity very clearly here to be able to personalize the member journey based on what the models are seeing. So, our models are presenting to the customers a better understanding of where the customer is at with them, so that they can personalize the message as well. Now, the way it's changing, and the way it's going to change, which is even stronger, is that a lot of us now are running around with an Apple Watch, with a Whoop, or one other aspect of the wearable. And, shout out again to one of the preeminent Aussie work people don't understand as an Aussie brand, which is MyZone, right? MyZone is founded by two Aussie guys. It is by probably the largest industry provider of a wearable on site for operators to gain understanding of how their members are doing in this area. But the reasons why wearables are playing a large part is that we wear them inside facilities and outside facilities. So we've got that more comprehensive picture of what's going on, right? So when Ian attends the gym, I wear a Whoop, I've got an Apple Watch, I have a graveyard of wearables, anything that comes out, right? My wife says all the gear and no idea, but I collect all of these wearables. But say, for instance, I've just been out and I've just pushed a 5-kilometer run, and then I come into the gym. Having the data within the site, and then for them to be able to personalize that, maybe I move on to a recovery workout rather than a pushing it workout. Maybe, for instance, I turn up for a personal training session and, I've been working till midnight. I've just got off an aeroplane. I'm having a stressful time. My body is not, I may be smiley and I may be ready to go, but the fact is that I'm not in the stage where I should be pushed. It could do me damage. This is where AI comes in. It's telling the personal training that the recovery level of Ian, he's currently in the red. Ian, listen, we're not going to push it today. We're going to do some stretching. We're going to concentrate on your form, and we're going to push it on 2 days' time once you've got some more rest in, right? Those areas of personalization at scale are going to help both the fitness industry, because you move from being a provider of fitness equipment to being a coach. You're there to look after my welfare. You're showing an interest in where I am at in my life at that stage. And that's only possible using machine learning. We can only do that with AI. There is no way. We can do it when we've got 100 members and we know everybody and we're in a small town out in the burbs somewhere.
And you guys
exactly, and they are. Yeah, but you can't do that otherwise.
No, that's so amazing. So continuing on, is smart use of data going to be like the main driver, like factor of success going forward? Like, do you think that, the use of data and how that's used and, perhaps like leveraged, how is that going to impact success? And do you think that's going to be a main driving force?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's been said many times, and I'm not quite so sure it's not completely true, but they'll say that data is the new oil, right? And data is the new gold. And it is. I spend a lot of time on the speaking circuit trying to say to organizations, not about AI, because a lot of them still are, this robot's taking over the world. What's Elon Musk telling us, or that? What I'm trying to say to them now is, you have no idea what we'll be able to do with your data in 12 months' time. You have no idea what we can do with your data in 2 years' time, right? Make it your policy to protect your data, collect it, be disciplined about it, because we didn't know we could do the stuff we're doing now with data from 5 years ago. And that's never going to, this is only going to get better. And I see it every day. I stay with the academic elements of AI. I can see what's coming down the line, and that comes first and foremost. So I think that data, not necessarily just AI and machine learning, just smart utilization of data is critical. And organizations still don't tend to have as much discipline about collecting it. It's like, yeah, whatever, and they should do. And they should spend their time looking at everywhere we collect data and then saying, right, if we're going to collect it, let's do it properly. It's necessary. And well, we're not going to use that. Well, we don't know what we'll be using that for, because we've got quite a few little stories of where data that had been collected 10 years ago is now the core of an algorithm, which is driving massive value going forward.
No, but it's unbelievable. Like, there's all these data, like mines, they've called it, you know, all these companies have all this valuable data that's just there. So there's been like data miners now. I just think it's so cool. But continuing on, should we be worried that so many decisions, you know, like now and forthcoming are going to be, you know, based on algorithms? I know you touched this on before, how some people are a bit like, oh, that AI.
Well, I'm not Elon Musk. It's not I don't think the robots are taking over the world, or, you know, any of that aspect of it. But yeah, I do have concerns, and the reason is that, you know, I think culturally and as a world we are evolving quite rapidly and correctly currently into a whole host of new directions. And data sets are historical, which means that they have biases in them, which will in turn reflect in the outcomes, right? And that does cause me concern. I'm not sure. Well, I certainly have not experienced the bias aspect, but what I have experienced is the frustration when an organization has made a decision and then there's no capacity for me to challenge that decision because within the organization it's been made through machine learning. So it definitely does cause me some concern. It's, you know, to build an algorithm and then leave it would be wrong. Things change on such a regular basis that these models have to have reflection points where we can go back and look at the assumptions that have been made, or more importantly, look at the data set that's been made. So for instance, if we look at on a gender basis, if we go and place in a data set which is 85% male orientated and 15% female orientated, then we're going to expect the bias to come out. Now, we may say that this was a data set produced 30 years ago in a particular industrial sector looking at employees. Okay, well, if we roll that forward 30 years, we've probably got a gender split of 50-50 now. And yet we've got an algorithm which has been working off that. Those type of things do cause me concern, and I think we will start to see them. But I also feel that we'll start to evolve. What we also need to remember is data's live. It should be consistently coming in, so we should have a catch-up period. But yeah, there are aspects of it which do cause me concern, and I certainly would be a proponent of making sure that there's a consistent review done.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's really good to hear, like, consistent review, you know, as you said, make it reflect now. So continuing on, like, I want to go into young people, obviously, as we have lots of young listeners. So what role does young people play in, like, the ethical integration of AI, like, into systems and society?
I think that the challenging of them is going to be important. You are going to operate. Let's say that currently in my world, I'm going to say, if I had to make a guess, 30% of maybe 40%, you could really frighten yourself if you actually went through it and think 40% of my life as a citizen on the planet is probably driven by AI decisions, right? It's driven by AI in many, many respects. That's going to increase considerably. Yeah. But there is going to have to be, first and foremost, it is going to be your generation, which is going to build the next generation of tools. Right? And they need to make sure that they have placed in there the ethical bias that is going to ensure that those tools reflect society and reflects the ethics of society as well. Generation gaps are a challenge when it comes to the delivery of new technology. If we were to sit there and talk to Zuckerberg, or if we were to talk to the Google team and tell them how their platforms would have evolved for the generation, your generation today, it was never in their plan for that to be the case, right? And it has got to that stage. We need to make sure that we do have individuals who are prepared to stand up and drive in those ones. We are going to get to a stage where, just like we've had with social media in the last few years, where there's a massive pushback around privacy and data and those ones. And we need to make sure that the generations that are following have got the confidence to call out big business when big business is making decisions which predominantly are automated through the utilization of AI, because AI has the capacity to democratize for all a better life, but it also has the capacity to make it very difficult for some. And there needs to be an understanding of where that'll be. And that's going to be more for your generation to carry that torch, to make sure that the wrongs of the very quick evolution at the moment are righted, right, when the first opportunity comes along. Because at the moment, for the sake of progress, there will be an awful lot of, quite frankly, bad behaviors which will take place. And, I think we could call out quite a few large corporations over the last 5 years whose behavior in these areas has been questionable, to say the least.
No, and you youngsters listening, we expect you in 20 years to see you, championing this, and the
10, don't give them 20, 10 code, right?
Okay.
Everything's moving fast.
Okay, 10 years, 5 years, sooner the better.
Good.
So, now for our final question before we go on towards the end, Ian, what do you see for the future in our seemingly data-driven world?
I see, again, I'll go back to, I think I've kind of answered it to a degree, that what I'm saying is that I think that we're going to find that many tasks which you wouldn't even remember getting into a car and having to get a map out to be able to go from A to B. That's just never figured in your life, right? That was a large part of my life, right? I can, that type of complexity has been removed, right? So what I foresee us being able to have is a lot more personalized experiences which are relevant, which feel as if they're talking to us, which allow us to connect. I think we've got a whole different ballgame coming down the line, which is another stuff which I'm on at the moment, which is the metaverse, and that's going to take us into a whole different world on that particular aspect, but they're connected, right? For us at the moment, for me to participate in the metaverse, I go in and I have a relatively generic experience. When I enter in there and the power of the algorithms, and I'm going to have a very personalized, specific experience, and that's what comes through from the AI perspective. So I think exciting times. We could go into specifics, which we wouldn't have the time for, but the self-driving car aspect of it. I'm a Tesla owner. I'm well aware of this, what's going on in that particular area at the moment, and I've got a whole host of different tools, services, and products which are starting to develop at the moment, which have got AI involved in them, which, because of that, the adoption is going to be a lot faster. We're going to get a lot more value from them, and we're going to feel more connected to these things because of the intelligence that's associated with them.
No, wow, that's so amazing. I think it's definitely opened my eyes. But I've got a quick bonus question before we finish this podcast.
Yeah.
And I was hoping, Ian, if you could give a piece of advice perhaps to someone who's, aspiring to explore AI, machine learning, all this cool stuff, and be the champion in 10 years.
Be the champion in 10 years? Okay, well, listen, in all cases, whenever I have got myself involved in an AI project, I have never started with the AI. It's irrelevant. What I want to understand first is, what is the problem that I am trying to solve, okay? If I'm doing business, whenever you focus on a problem, people will pay to have pain removed from them, right? We always have a fear of losing $100 more than gaining $100, right? And pain is what drives the vast majority of decisions. So in my case, as we've said, with Keepme, I was trying to help with retention. I needed more members to stay. So what I would do was I would remove what you believe to be any barriers around the situation. And I would say, what is the primary problem that I am trying to solve, right? In my case, it was, how do I keep more members within the gym? It can be anything whatsoever. The second thing is there anywhere on the planet the data that showed us, right, where we got it wrong before or what happened? So, for instance, I'm trying to think about if there's another example on this side, on the retention side. So, for instance, if I wanted to take a look and see, I wanted to understand which people I should go to and brands ask whether they wanted to purchase a service of any description, right? I can use AI by looking at all of the people that purchased it before and didn't purchase it before. And by training a model, I can then bring in new data, and the model will be able to tell me those guys over there have got the highest probability of doing it. So my one sentence way of summarizing this is find a problem, right? Doesn't matter what it is, that would be big enough that people would be excited, just like when I said about what we'd done on Keepme, that people go, wow. Believe me, people won't care how you fixed it. They just want the solution. And then look at, can you find the data in some context, or can you then capture it going forward around that particular area, right? So that you can then look at building it, because there are so many AI guys out there now, right? We have the capacity that if you've got the problem and you've got the data, you'll be able to, within 2 or 3 years, move online and push that into a cloud-based, browser-based, and then have that model built for you. And you will not have to do it. And you'll be paying 50, 60, 70 bucks, right? Rather than currently, which is an awful lot more money to actually get this stuff done. So that means that everyone will have the ability to solve problems using AI as long as they've worked out what the problem is and what could possibly be used to solve the problem.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Ian, for that. I'm definitely going to be utilizing that, guys. And all
I know you will.
But no, thank you again, Ian, for your time and for coming on and sharing all your insights with us. It was great to talk to you. And thank you to everyone for listening. I'm sure you all enjoyed it. It was super cool, I thought. And please make sure to, like this podcast episode. I'll leave the link down below so you can actually read up a bit more about Keepme. It's just such a cool concept, as you've heard about for the past little while. So thank you again so much, Ian, for coming on.
Thank you, Chloe, and keep on doing what you're doing. It's great work.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.